nobody ever answers, and I just have to fucking tuck my tail and move on, and decided not to kick the door in. But later he tells me my brother was holding a pistol behind that fucking door.
What are we doing today, sir?
Doing well.
Doing well?
Doing well. Feeling good. Yeah.
Dude, it's a pleasure to finally sit down with you. Yeah. Dude, we've gotten acquainted recently. We've been able to catch some run miles together. We met a couple months back.
Yeah.
Where did we first meet?
I think at the TLR alumni meeting.
That's right. Treatment Center alumni meeting. I was there talking some shit, speaking, I think, right? And I believe I was just telling my story and brought up running and the running that impacted on me. And out of that big group, two guys braved it and came out and started running. It was you and our boy Drew.
Yeah.
And you guys are both gearing up for races and doing all the good shit.
Yes, sir.
What was it about that day? You know what I mean? Were you a runner before?
A couple months, yeah. I actually, about a month into being into sober living, a month out of rehab, I decided to slap on this fucking dusty pair of Nikes with no tread on the bottom. I had ripped the tread off, so they were literally no cushion, no nothing. It was basically just running with slippers on. And I was more or less like, what's the thing that I have control over where I can actively beat my mind every day? You know what I mean?
You were consciously thinking that?
Yeah.
At a month sober?
Yeah. I was like, what? Because I knew the person I wanted to be, but I had to come up with the route to get there. You know what I mean? A lot of these things have to be self-found, and something inside of me, I always liked running, but never really did it consistently, but I've always felt like I was, a couple miles in, you're kind of set free, from the mind, from the body even, when you get in a flow state, a rhythm. And so I was out there running, maybe 2 miles, 4 days a week. You know what I mean? Started pretty slow, but felt good. And a couple months after that, you had spoke at the meeting. I was like, this is one of those guys I need to get locked in with to see what I can do with this physical part of my life. Never done any races or anything like that.
Right.
So it was perfect timing for what I needed. It wasn't the reason I started running, but right. I think it's the reason that I've kept running and the reason why I've entered some races, and I'm trying to take it to another level.
Right. Dude, it's awesome, and it's the perfect time to do it. You know what I mean? Like, once we get newly sober, I trapped myself in a life where I was only doing meetings and only doing this and only doing that, and I didn't put for a long time. I didn't put a focus on like building a life for myself or finding that thing that makes me want to get up out of bed every morning. And running gave me that. And so for the fact that you're catching that bug too in any degree, dude, it's big. It's cool to finally have something to look forward to when you wake up. It's cool to every day have something you feel accomplished every time you're done. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those.
Not always easy, not always pretty, but you always feel accomplished.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those things where the more you do it, the more you realize on the other side of it, on 30 minutes later, just 30 minutes later, that's half a TV show. You're gonna feel 300-400. I mean, it's kind of it's a total shift in reality, in the way your body feels and the way your mind feels and the way your mind's talking to you. I'll take my shirt off, even though, I don't got the six pack yet or anything to really warrant taking a shirt off. But if I take my shirt off at 7 a.m. and go out there and run for 30 minutes through the city, it's almost like here I am world, you know what I mean? In my flesh, and the vanity, the, self-consciousness, that kind of shit for the day, at least, isn't there after that run. Yep. You got the empowerment from, do the thing and have the power, and running is one of those things that is the anchor for my morning to ride that wave throughout the day,
Right. But you just said something and it struck me about the taking the shirt off thing.
Yeah.
When I first started showing up to run groups, I think for whatever reason, that was what I was probably most intimidated by.
Yeah.
Just because I was so insecure with where I was, this pale heroin addict that just got sober, never been in the gym. And dude, I used to run and, I didn't know that you needed to wear dry fit shirts when you ran.
Sure.
Cotton shirts are going to rub your nipples right off and stuff. I didn't know that. And so showing up to these runs and going on these runs and dude, Texas heat, middle of the summer, fucking
Sweating.
Cotton t-shirts sticking to me everywhere because I was insecure to take my shirt off. But I remember, you know, I lost a little bit of weight, started doing well, got a little bit faster, and all of a sudden the shirt started coming off. All of a sudden then I'm showing up to runs without didn't even bring a shirt with me.
Yeah.
It's an empowering feeling, you know what I mean? It's a very different feeling of being able to go somewhere in public that's not the beach, not the pool, and taking your shirt off and being like, all right, motherfucker, let's get it.
Yeah.
It's a cool feeling.
Yeah, and you realize too that nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares where you are with your body. They're, you know, worried about themselves. Do they have their shirt on? Do they not? If they have their shirt off, they probably give that much less of a shit of whether or not you brought yours. They actually, I'm sure, understand. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's, yeah, it's funny that when the shirt comes off, you're that much more. And then it feels better running too. You know what I mean? You feel the air is getting on your skin. The shirt almost weighs you down and tightens up the muscles. And so, yeah, that was big for me. You know, just shedding the shirt, getting out of the self-conscious mindset, you know, and doing the thing.
So you're getting ready to come up on year sober?
Yeah. I'm a year on the 1st, so 11 and some change right now.
Man. Easy one to remember. Good shit.
Dude, come on.
I've been very, I don't want to say wary, but I've been very cautious with a lot of the guests that I've had on, and you're the first person I've ever had on that's been like under a year sober. I don't know what the bottom number is, but dude, just in a little bit amount of time, you've showed me one thing, and you showed me that you show up, and that right there is one of the biggest fucking things for me. Is like people that say stuff, talk a lot, and then people that show up and they show action. And every time you said you were gonna show up, you did. Fucking even this morning, me coming to grab you. Being up at 4:30 a.m., fucking bells on, ready to go, like, you know what I mean, dude? That's big shit right there, especially for somebody that's a year sober and everything like that. So I'm honored to have you. I'm excited for everything that lays ahead for you. But so now everybody sees this sober, vibrant, newfound runner that's all excited about life. But rewind a little bit, take us back. Where did the problems begin for you, and what did it look like?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think pretty typical American family story. Parents divorced when I was 3. Mom was a meth addict for 20 years. Crack for a couple years after that. Dad was a hard drinker, you know. He could keep his job and shit, so I wouldn't really put him in the alcoholic category, but worked graveyard shift and you know, drank heavy on the weekend. And yeah, parents broke up when I was 3, went through a pretty bad divorce, took like 5-6 years to finalize, you know, had the whole guardian ad litem thing, and mom's trying to take a couple of the kids or all the kids. Dad doesn't want her to have any of the kids, you know, so it was a pretty rough little divorce, but yeah, I remember when I was 3 was kind of the first, you know, trauma, the breaking of the mother-son bond. She didn't have custody for years, and then after a while she got every other weekend for a few years, and then that was over. So mom was basically gone. Dad went and married a very mean and mad woman that had a lot of trauma, a lot of unresolved trauma. So it was the whole kind of Cinderella story. We've got a stepmom that's got all the power of a parent, but none of that maternal bond that keeps them from going over the, you know. 3 years old, that happened. And then basically just spent a lot of my time grounded in my room from like 7-8 years old. So I was about 12. She was a real military style. We're going to take everything out of your room. You can read a book. But it'd be months on end.
Sounds like my childhood.
Yeah. Months on end in a room sitting alone, fucking, you know, sometimes crying, you know, sometimes reading a book. But the whole time sitting in resentment and anger and mad that I didn't have any control over this situation, you know. And so, you know, that went on until I was like 11, and then I did like a year in foster care, and some juvie time, you know, a couple weeks, a month maybe here and there. kept getting the police called on me by the stepmom, you know, picked up a couple of misdemeanors really young. And then when I was 12, when I was 13, I moved in with my mom in an apartment, and she was smoking crack at the time. It wasn't good. She attempted suicide, and I found her in her room, you know, puking all over herself out, you know, and we didn't have a working phone, so I had to run down to the leasing office and use their phone to call 911. And then, you know, I had attempted, like a year later, living with her, different apartment complex. But the cord that I used from an alarm clock, you know, it broke. And thank God, because a lot of the shit growing up that we don't know how to deal with, that is like traumatizing and shit, it's easy to pull that trigger,
hold
you
on,
know.
pause. You said about someone tried to hang themselves?
Yeah, me.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the cord broke. It was like out on the balcony off of like one of those.
How old are you?
From the balcony. I'm 34.
No, how old were you when this was taking place?
14, I think.
Damn.
Yeah. But you know, and you know, what's funny about real suicidal thoughts, you know, being in a place of not necessarily cry for help, because there was nobody, you know, and my mom would be gone days on end and shit, in her addictions, and I was just alone in this house, separated from my siblings, separated from anybody, actually, you know, and didn't have a cell phone or anything like that. You know, this is right before those things were a common thing for a 14-year-old to have. And it gets really peaceful right before you attempt something like that, because you've made the decision, you've okay with it now, you know. But I'm happy that happened, because you know, about 6 months after that, I moved out of my mom's, and I went, I think, back to my dad's for like 6 months, something like that. And then I went out to Illinois to live with my grandma for a couple of years. And I lived with her till I was 17. And then dropped out of high school when I was a junior, got my GED. Was going to get recruited by the Navy. So I was, you know, told to do that process. I was going to turn 18 in a few months. They ended up changing some bylaws in that 2 weeks. It took me to get my GED, and I was unable to get into the military. The recruiter basically dropped me. I never heard from him again.
So the Navy told you to go ahead and get your GED.
Yeah,
you got
17.
It, and then they weren't accepting it after that.
In the 2 weeks, so the Navy has passed some bylaws.
Come on, Navy?
Yeah, has passed by. I mean, it was kind of, you know, there was an influx of people sign up at the time. I think it was a couple of years after 9/11. Yeah. Anyways, that kind of went down the drain. I was kind of lost. I thought the military was going to be the thing that could pick me up and kind of change my mindset about how the world is against me, or I've been dealt a hand of cards that I couldn't get past, you know, because growing up, you know, my stepmom would really beat into me, you know, you're going to die or you're going to go to jail, you know. There was never any uplifting of passion or any kind of drive or motivation in the household. It was a very resentful father and a very resentful, upset, angry, traumatized stepmom, and all of the anxiety, and you know, you could cut the air like cheese when he walked into my place. You know what I mean? When the house I was in growing up. But yeah, moved out of grandma's, got my own apartment when I was 17 across the river. Grandma was in Illinois. That's where my dad's side of the family's from. Moved to West Burlington, Iowa, which is right across the river from where she was at. Yeah, give a 17-year-old that's full of resentment his own apartment, you know, in a city alone, and see what happens. You know what I mean? And what I did was I sought out, you know, any drug dealers I could find, you know, and just surrounded myself with people that were fucking off. You know what I mean? And you know, did that for a couple of years, and you know, I don't know how far you want me to dive into,
We'll get there.
but I can kind of, yeah, go ahead.
No.
You know,
I can, you saying that, man, it takes me back. And there was a time where I was mentoring at-risk youth, and I'd mentor them after school and all that. And there was one gentleman, I'd give him a ride home. He was a senior, and I'd give him a ride home. And then one day I go to drop him off, and we're sitting there for like 20 minutes. It's midday. You know what I mean? He'd just gotten off school. It's probably 3, 4 o'clock. He's knocking on the door, dude, and we're there for like a half hour. Nobody's coming to the door. And there's cars in the driveway. And it was I think the mom and the boyfriend were like just getting up, middle of the day. And it was a good lesson for me, because it woke me up, because when I started mentoring all the kids at the school, I walked into the school like, these are bad kids. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That showed me where it's like, damn, it's like, it's all about the hand you're dealt. You know, we can't always choose. You know what I mean? Hopefully, eventually, we get older like you have and have found your way. But, bro, you get mad at a lot of people for how they are and stuff like that. And I'm not saying there's not any. Somebody has to take accountability at some point, but you couldn't help how you were raised, what you were raised. You know what I mean? The things that were going on around you.
Right.
I think now that you've reached to a point where you realize that it's built you into who you are today, and I'm sure you've told me before you wouldn't change a thing, much like I wouldn't.
Right.
I'm happy I've gone through all the things I have. Didn't like it when I was going through it, but grew nonetheless. And so it just takes me back and thinks about that and gives me a little bit more, I think, patience and understanding for people, where it's like, damn, like we have no idea what these people have been through or anything like that. So I give a little bit of grace in that sense. So glad you made it out, dog.
Yeah, me too, man.
So at 17, you got your own place. At what point because heroin ended up being your thing, right?
Yeah.
At what point does heroin get introduced?
Well, and I'll back it up just a little bit. Started smoking weed, drinking, had a buddy whose dad was a dealer, so there was a little cocaine, a couple of other things, some Xanax, some pills.
The dad's
like
giving his son
12,
coke?
13. Well, or he was stealing it. You know what I mean? When your dad's stealing the shit, he was
pinching a wool.
That kid in school who, had all the drugs that none of the other middle schoolers had yet. This was like middle school, 13. And so that's when I started like smoking weed and stuff like that. And then when I moved in with my mom, I started drinking, smoking weed. And when I was, I think, like 17 is when the opiates came in, and pills first, and Xanax and benzos and things like that. And when I was, I think about 19, and I had moved back to Washington State, where I grew up, it was pretty Percocet 30s and Oxys and shit were everywhere. And I was introduced to those by my sister. She actually had a year where she was hooked on Opana is what they were called, but it's a very strong opiate.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to 30 milligram Percocet for the first time. And after that, it was, how can I find this thing again?
Yeah.
And before you know it, when I was like 20, 21, I had a buddy that was selling everything. And he was selling me the Percocet 30s, but one night he ran out, and all I've got is this black tar heroin. You know what I mean? And fuck, I tried that much cheaper product and
Shot it?
No, I was never an IV user. I always smoked it.
Oh, okay.
A couple of times snorted it if it was like white China or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I wasn't an IV user, and I just always seen where IV use took you.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to, when smoking did enough, I never wanted to step it up to that level.
Gotcha.
So yeah, real early 20s, heroin got introduced.
Do you remember what it was like? Or obviously you remember what it was like, but do you remember the first time you got dope sick?
First time, there's a lot of times.
Dude, yeah, I spent more of my life fucking dope sick than anything else.
I think the
probably.
first couple times I didn't realize it was dope
Me
sickness.
too. I thought
I had a flu, and for some reason the flu didn't come with necessarily all the same symptoms, but they were close enough, But yeah, I never went to the doctor or any shit. So it was more or less, I'm going to feel like shit for like 3 or 4 days, but I didn't realize. And I would be taking things like Xanax and shit, and smoking weed, drinking. So it would kind of off-put some of those symptoms. But yeah, I think it was like in that, honestly, I couldn't really tell you, but I know that I didn't know what it was the first couple of times it happened. You know?
I remember when I got back from, I went to basic training, went to my schooling and all that. When I came back, when I left for basic, the night before we left for basic, me and all my buddies were blowing coke, bunch of coke. When I came back on leave, I was trying to find coke, couldn't find it. Oxys had leveled our area. Everybody was on oxys, and I remember talking to my buddy Nick, and he told me, he's like, bro, you don't want to fuck with these, you don't want to fuck with oxys, they'll get a hold of you. I'm like, yeah, right, bro. Come on, let me get that. And so I remember the first couple of times I had tried it, the oxys didn't hit me. I was like, these fucking suck. And one time, dude, I snorted one and it fucking hit me. And I was like, this is fucking great. I can eat, I can sleep. It's not miserable like coke. This is fucking awesome. And so I started fucking around with them, and once in a while thing became a weekend thing, which became a middle week and weekend thing to then when you're doing it every day. And I remember I was still in the Air Force, and I got shipped off to Germany. And I ended up there in Germany, bro, and I ended up coming down with, like, the worst flu ever. And talked to my buddy back home. He's like, bro, you're dope sick. You're not, And it was for some reason, as soon as he let me know it was dope sick and it was not the flu, it got so much worse.
So much worse.
So much worse.
Right.
And then it's funny, I've always kind of laughed about the dope sick shit, because if you've ever gone into the hospital or you go anywhere that's not treatment, and you're trying to get some relief from a doctor, and you tell them, and they're like, well, what are your symptoms? And the only symptoms you can give them are flu-like symptoms. You know what I mean? Like upset stomach, dry heaving, diarrhea.
Yeah,
and
sweats.
None of that sounds that bad. You know what I mean? Any of the things you tell people, but unless you've experienced what it's to be like in withdrawal, the most uncomfortable, restless fucking feeling on this earth.
Yeah.
Describing it doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, I think especially with like heavy opiates, you almost mentally forget what having skin feels like, what being in a human body feels like. And especially if you're at
Just
6
to feel-
months,
just to
a
feel
year.
normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it's like your pain receptor, or, your nervous system things. But basically what makes you, feel like you're in a human, a lot of it's been shut off, So like reacclimating to what it feels like to be in a body, and you know how things normalize, like just little everyday aches and pains or whatever. Yeah, you were numb for a year. And the funny thing about opiates is that it only takes like 5 or 6 days of continuous use before you're going to have to deal with a day or two.
Yeah.
You stretch that out, you do a year binge or whatever, where you've done it every day for a year. You got a good 2 weeks, and that's just the initial withdrawals. And then after that, good luck getting to sleep, staying asleep. You'll go to fall asleep, and your nervous system will wake you back up because you've been nodding out for so long that's what your body is now used to doing, is waking you back up, Withdrawals are hell, and a lot of it's the brain trying to find a way to get high.
Yeah.
The brain's like, I could do this, then this, then that. You really see how your brain's a problem solver when you've been addicted to opiates or, hard drugs like that.
Did you ever have to kick in jail?
No. Nope, never. But I've never had to kick in jail where I was, but I've, I've came off of shit for a couple of days, but never had to go through like a week of jail withdrawal.
Probably the easiest withdrawals I ever went through was in jail.
Yeah.
And you realize how much withdrawals are mental. Because once you're in there, you're not getting any dope. You're not getting any money.
There's
you're not
no
getting
route
any of that.
to it.
And so then you just kind of go through it, and it wasn't ever as bad. But when you're out in the world, there's always that glimmer of fucking thing in the background, like, I'm gonna score, I'm gonna get this shit, and it just keeps you like that. But I'll tell you what, I'd kick heroin any day over oxys or fucking subs.
Yeah.
The pills were way fucking worse kick for me. I can remember kicking oxys and like wrapping my arms as tight as I could and like laying on them just because they were so restless and you can't sleep. Wrapping my legs around with pillows, just trying to like have that fucking pressure. But worst, I would attribute probably the last 4 or 5 years of my addiction was because of not wanting to be sick.
Yeah.
It wasn't about getting high anymore.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's like, do I want to keep the job I have? Because if I try to kick, the job's gone. Because I've got a week or two where I can't show up for work. Shit, give me 48 hours or give me 24 hours without anything in me, and good luck getting me to show up to that shift. You know how many jobs I've lost. You know, going through just regular withdrawal, my dealer hasn't picked up in a day.
Yeah.
You know, and then showing up at work or whatever and trying to score while you're working. You know, I've been in the kitchen biz for 15 years, so it's a little bit easier than some jobs. But it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, using opiates daily.
I remember I was living in Florida. I had moved down near Miami, and then I was working in Boca Raton, and so I was bouncing at this pool hall in Boca Raton, and bro, there was dudes bringing me coke, and I'd sell coke out of there, and so like I'm literally standing out front of this place around the pillar, trying to use the street light for light to shoot up coke during my shift, and I ended up picking up a second job at a pizza place. There was this New York dude that was a couple stores down, and I started working at the pizza place too. And I'll never forget, it was the first time I took a sub too early and fucking went into immediate withdrawals. And I'm sitting there fucking dry sweating, miserable, dry heaving, all that. And I remember the guy coming up to me and he's like, dude, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. Why? And sick as fuck, you know what I mean? Just trying to make enough money for that day to go out and get what I needed or whatever. And he's like, I don't know, man. My wife really thinks you're fucked up. She really thinks you're on drugs, dude. You don't look well. And I'm sitting there like getting all upset. Like, how dare you say something like that?
Sweating profusely, white.
Sick as balls. And I think that he ended up letting me go. And that was probably, to my knowledge, one of the only jobs I've ever actually been fired from. I could maintain best I mean, obviously I got kicked out of the military, so that's the ultimate firing. But
Yeah.
didn't really get fired from many jobs, bro. But there's nothing like trying to maintain a normal life in the midst of being dope sick, bro. It's not happening.
Oh yeah, there's no composure whatsoever. In the mind, once again, the mind is like a big part of it because your mind's racing. You can't focus on whatever you're trying to do for work, you know.
Just to give people a picture, I'll go ahead and share one of mine, and then if you feel comfortable, you go ahead and share it. But I think about all the things, and I've done some grimy shit to get money. But I remember one of the worst things I had ever done. I stole a gun from the girl I was dating's dad, and it was like a family heirloom that he had been given, and I stole it from under his bed, and I was like, there's no way he's ever gonna know this is gone. And that fucker knew within days. He knew it was gone. And so I was trying to blame it on her sister's boyfriend and saying it wasn't me, when here I'm the only drug addict around. And I remember like breaking in the house, getting the gun, going off, selling it to my dealer, getting oxys for it, and then finally he knew it was me. And so I had to come clean. And so I came clean, and he's like, all right. He's like, I want the gun back. We're gonna go get it back. And I was like, all right, cool. And bro, I took him over there where we got it. He asked me how much I paid for it, or how much I got for it, how much I had to pay to get it back, and I told him double what it was, just so I could have dope money. So I went in there, bought the gun back, and bought pills, and then came back out. I don't think I've thought about that in probably 10 or 15 years, but that's the only reason I'm not bringing glory to the story. The only reason I'm doing it is telling that story just to let people know like how desperate you can be when you're trapped into that. Do you have any experiences or stories like that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that robbing people and shit wasn't really something I did too much. But I mean, like I got into it kind of bad with these couple of guys that were living in a tattoo shop that had just gotten out of prison, and I was living in the back of the tattoo shop in Tacoma, Washington, and they were running, they were basically running meth up to California, up to NorCal, trading it for weed, bringing it back. That was kind of their racket. But one of the guys was a big meth user. The other guy was just pretty twisted, like wanted to hit licks, And I get involved with these guys, start hanging around with them. and I get kicked out of the tattoo shop, little apartment they had behind there, because these guys moved in, and one was a tattoo artist, you know, and the guy that also ran the tattoo shop was a big meth user. Yeah, and so, you know, we started setting up, you know, basically, you know, trying to rob drug dealers, you know what I mean? And there was one time that we cased this house, and there's, you know, typically a bunch of people there, but we found out that at like 8 o'clock in the morning, the main guy goes to work, and there's a kid watching the house, you know, and he must have been like maybe 16, 17. So yeah, so we roll up in there, and, you know, shotgun, a pistol, and a baseball bat, and end up just using, thank God, the baseball bat. But they had me as the guy that went in first, and the guy that was to swing the, you know, so I had to fucking hit this kid a couple times with the bat, and then he wrestles me down to the ground. We're wrestling, and my fucking ass, I'm like, shoot him, fucking shoot, you know, just what the fuck, right. You know? And yeah, and so they, you know, zip tied him, and then we went throughout the house, and we stole some guns and some drugs and shit, you know, and the guy was from California, that, you know, and so there was a bunch of ecstasy back when that was still a thing, and mushrooms, and, you know, a bunch of things. But you know, it's funny because after that I took some of the mushrooms, and I'm tripping, and then these guys basically robbed me for the piece that was supposed to, you know, we don't know what happened to that laptop, or what happened to this jar of this, or they just knew I was a stupid kid, and I realized that at that time I was being used as just a dumb kid that has no fucking clue how this shit works, and I'd be a fall guy for him, you know. Right. And I was on mushrooms, luckily, so they had my mind in a place of different thought, if you will, you know. And it realized you need to call your dad. You know, I hadn't talked to him in a couple of years, but his number never changes, you know. And so I asked one of the guys that was just helping us do this job, but he was, you know, not one of the two guys I was referring to, that, you know, and he drove me to the McDonald's, you know, and I called my dad at the McDonald's, like, Dad, I'm fucked up in more ways than one, you know.
Did he know you were going to call your dad or no?
No, I was just like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I don't want any of this shit. I just want to get away from these two fucking guys that really have none of my best interest in mind. Yeah, you know. And but you know, I will tell you though, one time there was a guy that was, I've done a lot of shit to like run down some dope. Like, I've got money in my pocket, but I've got to find
I know what you're talking about,
the dealer that's not answering his phone, that should. And there was a kid that was selling heroin out of his parents' house, his mom's house, out of his bedroom window, right? So you'd come up on the porch, and don't knock on that fucking front door, right? You know, but he'll sell you some shit out of the window, you know what I mean? And he wasn't answering, and it's like Kansas City, Missouri, and it's cold as fuck outside. It's winter time, and I'm dope sick, and he's not answering. And I go down there at like 6 a.m. It's like early in the morning, and I get to his house, and I'm beating on his window, and he's not answering. I give no fucks about his mom being home, or, you know, I don't know if anybody else lives there. I'm in this big ass jacket and like some fucking, you know, my outfit was crazy. I look like a drug addict, right, fucking fiending. And he never answers, and I start banging on the front door, and starts going through my mind, I'm gonna fucking kick this door in and find where this guy's stash is and get my fucking fix, you know. And this wasn't the kind of kid that you would want to do that with either, you know. He was facing a felony charge for robbing like a pharmacy and shit while he was doing, you know.
He didn't give a fuck.
No, he gave no fucks. He was just that kind of kid, you know. And nobody ever answers, and I just have to fucking tuck my tail and move on, and decided not to kick the door in. But later he tells me my brother was holding a pistol behind that fucking door when you were banging and knocking, nobody else was home. If you'd have opened that door, he'd have shot you in the fucking face.
Oh shit.
You know, and that's just the kind of shit that you don't think about
Yep.
when you're fucking fiending.
Yeah.
You know, nothing matters. Not even my own life. Just
Yeah.
getting high, you know, so not to war story too much, but
Nah,
you know,
bro,
you know how it fucking goes.
You're not glorifying it, but you know what I mean. I think it's stuff like that that lets people know, like, oh, wait a minute, like, we're the same. You know what I mean? People identify with it. So, and dude, even saying this and telling the story that I just told, like, I've always prided myself in one of the things I say when I speak is, like, I never got down with stealing, and I didn't in a general sense, but that one time I definitely did.
Sure.
In the desperation of the situation and everything that was going on, and I was
The
resentful and
opportunity.
stuff. Yeah. But yeah, dude, it's to think back, you know what I mean? To think back then, and it was just like, that was a different fucking human. Like, I don't understand the train of thought, don't understand the thought process, anything we were doing back then, but literally completely different human.
Yeah, and it's, for me at least, it was a total adversity to discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that fucking meant. Discipline too much as a kid, I will never fucking deal with discipline, and that includes self-discipline. And so what my mind wanted, I went and chased after and tried to get. There was no putting a stop to it, you know, and then the mind would follow that, you know what I mean? The body would follow the mind would follow the body, and it was just a vicious loop of instant gratifying pleasure seeking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always feel uncomfortable. How can I not feel uncomfortable? You know.
Did you have that? We might have talked. Did you have that, like, for sure rock bottom moment?
I've had a few of them.
Yeah.
I've had a few of them, but I would say this last one, obviously, because I've almost got a year sober, and this is the longest time I've been sober since I was like 12. You know. But this feels different. This is the first time in my life, where I am happy, truly happy, joyous and free, and happy to be alive. I'm really grateful for my life, not just seeing what the world can give me pleasure-wise before I take off out of this world, because I've got no true gratitude for life itself, you know. And I'm in that place today, and I'm building a life that I wouldn't trade for the life of pleasure and instant gratification. This is a much more powerful feeling, stoking that inner flame and really becoming something that you're proud of. The self-respect, you know. So rock bottom moments, you know, the thing that got me to go to rehab this time around. I've been to rehab twice, you know, and both in the last few years. So I never did rehab in my 20s or anything. I was totally okay to kind of pass away by early 30s, you know, and just run it down to the ground. But yeah, I was dating a girl that I really, really loved, and we were trying to have a kid and trying to maybe build something. And yeah, I mean, I just kept doing things. We had, and this is in Houston, where I was before I came to Austin for like 7 years. And we had met up like 3 different times, 3 different ways, you know, but initially met her at a bar. This last time around, I met her through Tinder. She just happened to have a Tinder profile. I haven't talked to her, in years, right? And so I swipe right and she swiped right? So next night she comes over to my house and I'm on Xanax and I think some MDMA. And so I'm totally chill, right? And she goes, "Steven, you're so different. You're so chill. Like, I can do this." I'm like, "Yeah, baby, you know, this is me now. I'm just fucking Xanaxed out of my brain, you know what I mean?" Right. So I gave her a false fucking bill of goods from the get. But, you know, one thing leads to another, and we're dating again. And she's got her apartment, I've got my apartment, and I'm smoking crack when I'm not at her, you know. I'm in Southside inner city Houston, you know, and when I'm not at her place, I'm smoking crack, and is sometimes I'm sneaking it at her place. But most often, if I had some connection, if I was around her, I could deal with just taking some Xanax and drinking. But due to this thing, she could never get me fully into the relationship. Any chance I got, I would run away to my apartment to smoke some fucking crack. You know, it was the thing that was like anchoring me to my apartment. I didn't want to move in with her. I was living a double life, you know. And she wants a man that can provide for her, that's fucking serious, that wants to have a relationship he's willing to work on. And I didn't do anything but run whenever shit got a little bit heated. I couldn't be told shit. I needed to tell her exactly where I stood, but when it come to her telling me where she stood, I couldn't hear it, you know, and just totally full of myself, and a lot of it driven by drugs, you know, the way I was showing up. And I would send her crazy texts, you know, when I was at my apartment and she was at hers, and I had some, you know, resentment because of the last argument we had or something. I get all cracked out, and now I'm sending her page-long texts that she's not even responding to. I'm having a conversation with myself for 3 hours at fucking 2 in the morning, you know, but she wouldn't block me. She would read this shit, or maybe she wouldn't, but she would just let me be fucking crazy. And maybe a couple days later, I'd call her when I kind of calmed down, came down a little bit, maybe ate some Xanax, you know, and I'd be all chill again. And she'd be like, why can't you be like this all the time? You know what I mean? I'd be ready to apologize or talk about some shit. This goes on for like 6-8 months, back and forth, you know. And then the last time I saw her, we hadn't seen each other for a few weeks. She said, you want to come over and do some mushrooms? I said, you know, of course. Every time she would ask me back, I'd run for her. But at this point, she knew that I had been smoking crack and shit. I had told her, you know, out of spite, you know, like one time we got in a fight, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I've also been smoking crack at my place, you know. And she's like, God, I feel sorry for you. Mm-hmm. She wasn't fucking, she was sad for me, you know. And yeah, we're having an argument, and she sits me down on the bed, and she looks me in the eyes, and she's like, you are an emotionally immature, childlike individual that I do not love. You know, I'm like, but do you love me? I do not love you. You know, you show up, you know, like a drug addict. You know, I was showing up like a part-time crackhead, you know. And she goes, you run away from any kind of problem we may have. You always run. I'm sitting right here, and you'll get up and you can't even face the music, you know. And she told me exactly how I was showing up, and it came from a girl that I really loved and really did not want to lose. And I had lost her. In that moment, I realized I had lost her. Maybe weeks prior, maybe in that moment, you know. But I couldn't handle it. And so I throw a champagne bottle through her window and shatter her window. You know, it's her bedroom window, upper floor, but, you know, take away her security, you know, because that's one thing I would never do is like lay hands, you know, on a girl. So she felt, you know, she would call me like a big, you know, like I'm a big golden retriever, she would say. You know, I was comfortable to be around, you know, because everybody has their own issues they're dealing with, you know. But I couldn't sit there and let the police come and get arrested and, you know, have accountability for breaking this girl's window and, you know, causing her some fear and stuff, you know. So I ran away, you know. I took the other bottle out of the fridge with me, of course, and ran away and jumped on a bus and got a call from a detective about 20 minutes later and didn't answer, and go back to my house and decide, well, what better time to smoke a bunch of crack and, you know, do a bunch of other drugs than to when I'm thinking there's a warrant out for my arrest, you know. And she's not responding to my text, so she's not telling me whether she filed charges or what have. So I'm just paranoid out of my mind and waiting for the door to get cracked, you know, for somebody to kick the door in. And I've got a roommate at the time, and I've got him sleeping on the floor because I'm out of my mind, and I think that, you know, people are gonna come through the window, like fucking SWAT's gonna come crash my apartment down because I broke a window.
Right.
You know, that's where my mind was.
Been there.
And
Been there, bro.
And I'm looking out and it was fucking horrible. And so this goes on for a couple of days, and I'm paranoid out of my mind. And so I take like 10 or 12 Xanax. I take the last of my Xanax because I'm convinced they're coming that night. And they're going to get me with a charge. I might as well fucking maybe.
Wait, hold on. You took 12 bars?
Yeah, no, 12 blues.
Okay.
So it was only 12 milligrams, you know. But I thought with enough booze and shit, maybe that would do the trick. Maybe I can fucking leave this earth. You know what I mean? So got a little suicidal there.
I bet.
And, but it didn't. I fucking woke up at like 8 a.m. like clockwork, blacked out of my mind. And if I wasn't blacked out enough, I drank a couple more beers on top of it. And then I thought, well, I got to go to work. You know, I still got a fucking job at this time, working for a pizza spot. And I was like, well, I'm not dead. I got to get up and go to work. You know, it didn't occur to me to just call in and just, you know, take the hit. Mm-hmm. So I go to work, drink a couple beers on the way. I'm fully blacked out again by the time I get to work. And I start spewing out, you know. I'm smoking crack and this and that. And in the fucking dude's making pizzas, you know. And to my two owner bosses who adored me, you know, really had faith in me, but knew I had a little bit of a problem. I lay it all out there. And then they try to get me to leave the shop. I'm there for like an hour. Just blacked out, just like I own the fucking place. And eventually they get me out back. He's calling my brother, like I'm drinking another tall boy out back. I'm just fucking doing my thing, you know. And they're forced to fire me. I basically they did not want to, but they were forced to fire me. And so now I'm jobless, and I have a few $100 in the bank. And I go back to my apartment, and I'm smoking my Suboxone. And I'm fucking, you know, which at that point, yeah, I mean, it's
smoking my Suboxone.
It's, you know, the pill form, but I found out
yeah.
you could fucking roll that on some foil and smoke a fucking Suboxone. So I'm basically smoking heroin again, you know. Anyways, all these things are happening, and I'm sitting in my apartment room, and I just had an experience where I was like, so sick of how I was showing up in life, how I showed up for this girl that I really loved, how I was showing up for a job I really loved that had a lot of potential, how I was showing up for my brothers. And a week prior, my sister had a baby, and I didn't realize that she had a baby because she didn't tell me, because she knew I would just come fucked up, if at all, you know. And I was disgusted with how I was living, and for some reason it was enough this time. It got old. I was sick of this fucking cycle that I've been living in, this Groundhog Day every year, you know, this cycle of addiction and self-abuse, you know, that I did a 5-day dry fast, and it was easy because there was nothing in the fucking fridge, you know, so it was pretty easy to not eat anything.
Yeah.
I just didn't leave the house. And something about fasting made the brain prioritize food and water, because I didn't drink any water either. It was prioritizing food and water over the Suboxone or the benzos or the crack or the drinking. Like, I kicked everything in those 5 days. But I knew I couldn't have kept it kicked unless I went to rehab and had some help. And so I reached out to a buddy who knew a guy who knew a girl. They got me into a treatment center outside of Austin. And I left my whole apartment with my roommate, who was also an addict, of course, and said, you can keep the PlayStation 5 and the TV and all the shit if you get rid of all this shit when you leave this apartment. I was a couple grand behind on rent, so I knew it wouldn't last for but a month or two. And took a suitcase and went out to rehab, and decided to fucking change my life and actually try this thing called life. sober.
Yeah.
And see what happened, you know.
Poor girl, if you're out there, our boy Steven's crushing it. He's on his redemption tour right now. So, dude, that's a wild little run. But that going back to her sitting you down on the bed, dude, that's a powerful moment when she's laying out all that truth. One of the biggest questions I get, you know what I mean, is how to deal with loved ones or how to deal with people that are still trapped in addiction. It's so hard to answer because you're playing with somebody's life, and God forbid somebody goes and ends their life over it or something like that. You never want that to happen, but I absolutely needed somebody to draw that line in the sand and hold that mirror up to my face and let me know what a piece of shit I have been being, because I absolutely was being one. And so I don't know your views on it, but
yeah, no, it was. I
sounds like that girl
thank
saved
this
you.
girl, and I'm grateful for this girl from the bottom of my heart, because she was the first one that I really loved outside of a family member, you know, that could stand on all 10 toes, know where she was at, and be able to tell me exactly how the fuck I was showing up with no fear or no holding nothing back, you know, and just looking me dead in the eyes and telling me how I was showing up, and it finally fucking clicked that if I kept showing up this way, I would keep living. I would never hold on to anything. Everything would always leave me, or I would leave it, or there would be nothing concrete. There would be no roots to my life, you know. And how can a fucking tree grow without roots, you know?
Hell yeah. Well, dude, I couldn't. Number one, I couldn't be more excited that you, when we first connected and you jumped out there and you started running, and now you've been to the men's meeting, you've been to the run group, you've been to even the Thursday night Zoom call last night. What has been? I mean, obviously you're out there navigating your recovery and your journey and everything, but what has it been like for you to jump into the kind of the I Am Redemption stuff and see some of that? Does it differ from other recovery stuff, or like what has been your assessment of it thus far?
Well, it's great. It's fucking great.
You don't go say that because I'm sitting here either.
No. It's fucking great to be able to show up to something, get physical, show up as a group, the camaraderie, you know, and all have like a common goal of not only working out together and kind of freeing the mind like we were talking about earlier, starting the day off in a great way, but also connecting, you know, before 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you know, locking in with some people. And it's funny because you notice that when you're around active groups of people that are doing running or rucking or what have you, working out at the gym, everybody's happier than when you're around people that are doing nothing, no motion versus motion.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it's a very human thing to move.
Yeah.
And I think that in our life of sedentary, you know, sitting down, screens, instant gratification, and, you know, everything being delivered to your doorstep, a lot of that is being lost in at least America, you know, in our culture, how important it is to get up and move, and to be able to do it with a group of people that are on the same kind of growth path is, you know, and then showing up for it, you know, the empowerment that comes from, you know, the other day you hit me up and my knees bothering me for the last couple of weeks.
I was proud, bro. I'm proud. Go ahead, say it. Go ahead.
And you hit me up the night before, you know, and I give you this long text, few sentences about, oh, my knees hurting me, and I also worked out and sleep or something. I gave you a bunch of excuses, what it boils down to. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it out to this one. And I'd already set my alarm for like 6 o'clock because I planned a couple days before that to, you know. And my alarm goes off and I wake up and I go, oh, I'm not that tired, you know. And also my knee's not that fucking sore. And so I text you and say, are you still coming through for the run? Are you there yet, basically? Or can you still pick me up? Because fuck it, it's gonna feel better to show up. Let's do this. And I said, I'll walk it out if my knee really bothers me that bad.
Right.
And yeah, no, it was good because you were like, I'm 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
Let's fucking get some.
Bro, that's, you know? That right there is what it's all about. Because we try to do it on our own. We defeat ourselves every time. We're always going to come up with an excuse. We're going to have that 1 week day where we're too tired, too this, too that. But I didn't even have to say anything. You know what I mean? Like, you just know there's people there that are hoping you show up, expecting you to show up. You've been showing up. And so whatever it is, the shame, the guilt, the this, the that, it fucking got you up out there. And the next thing I know, you're running, and I'm telling you to slow. I'm like, bro, your knee, chill out, slow down.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Just being around, real quick, just being around people like that. Like, that's why I've tried to foster this community and do all this, you know, the Teresa and Amy and my boy Monster and a lot of the people that were around for the very beginning. Like, that's how we all found each other. Just because we all had this view of, like, don't get me wrong, like, getting sober is hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but that shouldn't be the fucking end all be all goal. Life doesn't stop once you're just sober, you know what I mean? And what I found from being years in the program is people have a tendency, like, when you're going to meetings, people kind of like sit in their shit. You know what I mean? Like, you go to a regular meeting, and that's the perfect place to be open and vulnerable and talk about your things. You know, I wish meetings were more like that than regurgitating stuff out of the book all the time, or quoting shit and throwing out all the cliches and all that stuff. Like, talk about that real shit you're really going through. Talk about that vulnerability. Talk about how you really feel. But, you know, the goal there is to get sober, stay sober. You know what I mean? Once you get sober, bro, there's a whole fucking world out here, things to conquer and things to go do and things we didn't know we were capable of. And so starting the run group or starting all these groups that we have now, it's like like-minded people find it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no, this isn't just enough to be sober. I'm ready to live a fucking life.
Yeah.
And so signing up for races, doing all this shit, meeting new fucking people, like, just within these past couple of weeks, like, you met Terrence, you met fucking all these other bad motherfuckers that are out here walking the same path as us, and it's like, yo, I didn't know we could do all this. Let's go.
Yeah, and it's once you start doing the connecting and the networking and joining groups and getting out there and showing up even when you might not want to, or maybe, you know, whatever, you get inside your head and you almost you'll let yourself beat yourself sometimes, but not thinking and just doing, and then realizing that when it's 30 degrees outside at 7 a.m, all these other people also showed up, you know, and so there's a camaraderie in that, and you know, I really want to. I'm in the process of changing my self-image, you know, and to change a self-image, to really internalize it and believe it and stay true to yourself, you have to do the things, you know. If you want to call yourself a runner, you have to fucking show up and run consistently, you know. If you want to call yourself a guy that works out, you've got to be in the gym working out, you know. That goes into other things. If you want to be the guy that you say you show up, you got to show up, you know. Otherwise, you're not staying true to yourself, and in the mind, there's that disconnect. Whereas if the story you're telling yourself matches up with the life you're living on a day-to-day basis, that friction that was inside of us for so long as addicts, the self that we wanted to be, we knew we could be, that God flame or whatever you'd like to call it, you know, that inner truth wasn't lining up with the way we were living our life. And it was a constant war inside, you know, even if we buried it deep down.
Yep.
But that war is no longer today because I'm trying to live the way that I want to live, and not just trying, but doing. And the more that I do it, the more that it solidifies this new self-image, this new identity, and sheds the old one, because the old Steven didn't show up. The old Steven said he would, you know, wanted to people please, but when it came to showing up in all areas of life, more often than not, I dropped the ball.
Yeah.
You know.
But when you finally like identify someone, you're like, I want that. I want what he has. I want to be, you know what I mean? Not that I'm not saying to compare yourself to other people, but you see those people where you're like, oh, that dude's fit. That dude's a runner. Like, I want to do that shit. And I remember like latching on to those people and finding those people. And it's very simple, dude. Ask yourself, when you start having those self-doubts, like, that person that I'm trying to be right now, would they fucking hit the snooze button and not go run right now? No. Would they eat this fucking pizza or cheese? But, you know, no. Like, all the things. And it's like, if that's true, if you truly, because people say shit like, oh yeah, I want to be like that. Do you really? because you're not living like you do. If you really want to be like that person, he really motivates you, do what he does. And then pretty soon it's just a working part of the way you operate. So I feel like you're very much there, and fucking, I'm excited for you, dude. I keep saying it, but I'm excited for you.
Fuck yeah.
What so everybody's heard some of your story today. They've got to hear some of the trials and tribulations. They got to hear some of the good stuff and how you're living now. If they're listening to this right now and heard your story, what's your advice for them? They're out there suffering right now.
Tap into that inner piece of divinity that we all have. Tap into that piece of us that's a piece of everything else. And there's power in there. Do the thing and you'll have the power. That's really what it boils down to. The self-empowerment, the self-respect, all the things that make you a happy, joyous person come from doing the things, and the mind will follow, and life is good.
Let's go. Doing the things, not sitting on our ass hoping for it to happen, dude.
Right. Nothing. Yeah. If you're going to happen to life, or life's going to happen to you.
Right.
And I'd rather choose today.
Hell yeah. So this brings me to my favorite question of the episode. Hypothetically speaking, you're walking out tonight. UFC championship of the world is on the line. What is your fucking walkout song that's going to get you amped up, ready to go?
Here we go. Ozzy Osbourne.
Can't go wrong.
The Wizard.
Okay.
Do we know this song?
Yeah.
Harmonica intro.
Yeah. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Anyways.
Very good one. Love it. At least this one I know. A lot of people throw out some shit that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I got to go look it up, but I do know that one. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Just a fucking slow, no words necessary kind of intro until it gets going,
So before we go, what's on the horizon for you? What's the next big thing?
Well, right now I'm managing a sober living house. I'm going to try to do as much as I can do with that. Bring the guys out to a farm. I'm going to plant a garden in the back. Really try to show them other things in life, running, gym, physical things. Really try to spread what I'm experiencing to them. Just getting connected with communities, and hopefully doing a marathon eventually. Had to step out of this one due to the knee. But a marathon's on the horizon. I think a long ruck or something, as far as that world's concerned. And just continuing to build the self-respect. You know what I mean?
Hey, brother, you keep showing up. I'm there with you every step of the way. Anything you need, I'm there, man. So very fucking proud of you. Very glad we got connected, and it's an honor to have you today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Hell yeah. If you would, take a look in your camera and throw out a couple I am statements to let them know who Steven truly is.